Hello, good evening, good night, good morning, wherever you may be around our global Microsoft Ignite. Welcome to Ask the Expert on Project Cortex. We're going to be talking about knowledge discovery and content intelligence in and around Microsoft 365. We're going to have a special focus on all of our announcements for Sharepoint Syntax that we made earlier today. Sharepoint Syntax is an exciting new set of services and capabilities to help you capture expertise and deliver it through automated tools for content understanding, content capture, and content compliance. We're also going to talk about the rest of Project Cortex. What are our plans for bringing topics and knowledge to the rest of Microsoft 365? So I'm your moderator tonight, Chris McNulty. I am Director of Product Marketing on the Microsoft 365 team. I'm joined by a couple of other folks here from Microsoft, but I really want to put a spotlight on our experts tonight. From left to right, Naomi Moneypenny, who is Director of Program Management for Cortex, and Kem Koye is Senior Program Manager, and Sean Squires, Principal Program Manager. Welcome, everyone, to our Meet the Experts panel, and I am going to note that I drew the blue box to give myself plausible deniability so I don't have to answer any questions officially unless I want to.
Oh no, man, you've been in this too long. You're stuck.
So I'll come back to this if we want to put any more context around who's speaking, but just wanted to put up some of the resources that we've shared throughout our blogs and announcements. These are some of the places that you may go for more information about Sharepoint Syntax or Project Cortex. Wanted to make sure that folks had those, and we'll definitely put those up later in the broadcast. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with this, this event is being run as a Teams live event. So that means that you can hear us, but we can't hear you. So if you have a question, using your client, if you go to the Q&A function inside of your menu, you'll be able to submit a question, and I'll be picking those questions off to be able to share them with our experts and hopefully have a good discussion and good dialogue. So let me take a quick look and see what questions we have that are coming in. So just as we are underway, I wanted to remind everyone that this event is, as all of Microsoft Ignite, governed by our code of conduct, that we want to make this a safe and welcoming environment for everyone. So hopefully this can be a respite from what can be very busy and days for all of us. It's great to be here with all of you. And we have our first question. And this question is coming from Gavin. Question is, with Sharepoint Syntax now announced as GA, what will the process be to activate it in our tenant on the 1st of October?
That's the best question.
We love that question. And Kem, if you're speaking, I think you're on mute.
Yes, I can take that question. Is that okay with you, Chris?
That's fantastic. Thank you.
Sure. So on October 1st, once you buy a license for Syntax, you'll be able to go to your admin center in M365, and you'll be able to turn on Syntax for your organization. So you'll see the suite of capabilities that are available as part of Syntax. So your form processing, your document understanding, you have the new site templates, Content Center available in your SharePoint Admin Center. You also have all the advanced content services in form of our enhanced managed metadata services offering also available in the SharePoint Admin Center. So it's really as easy as getting a license, making sure it's assigned to all your end users, and then working with your SharePoint admin and your global admins and your Power Platform admins to make sure it's set up for your organization.
Terrific. And I would just note on that as well, once we get to the other side of October 1st, there will be trial plans available through the usual online commercial means. So if you have want to get a trial license to turn Syntax on in your environment, you'll be able to do that. I actually did a test walkthrough of that last night. Brings you right into the M365 admin console, and you're able to present your credentials, and you are off to the Syntax races. Okay, more and more questions coming in. So here is a question from Lauren, which we just spoke to a little bit. Happy to let anyone else pick this one up. Will there be a trial capability for Syntax? So hopefully we've covered that. Our trial licenses are usually shorter in duration and a limited number of users. They're intended to help you get started with evaluating that. In addition, we have made a number of resources available to the Microsoft field as well as our partners to help take customers through the right steps to envision and figure out a rollout plan for bringing those capabilities into production. Here's a great question, and I think I'm going to start with you on this one, Naomi. This question's coming in from Jeff Collins. When you're implementing Syntax, what types of things do you need to be aware of? Are there special setups that make life easier in planning?
What a great question. That's so good. Are there special setups? Let's see, new things there. So if folks who don't know me, hi, I'm so glad that you're here. We're happy to answer all of your questions this evening. My name's Naomi Moneypenny, and I lead the Project Cortex team. I think when we're looking at Sharepoint Syntax and trying to implement that for the first time, there's a few things that we want to make available within our users as well as inside of Microsoft 365 more generally. So Syntax comes with kind of superpowers, right, as we describe it. So Syntax allows you to create this new content center that Inkem mentioned earlier. It allows you to think about, what kinds of models you want to process the information with. And so one of the things that you might want to consider at the beginning of that journey is really what kinds of business processes is this most applicable to? For example, if you're trying to extract information from structured data, so things like forms, for example, you want to process, how you might implement that and the kinds of information and what you need to extract from there. You also want to think about in unstructured documents, so the kinds of things that are like proposals, contracts, that kind of area as well. So thinking through a little bit about the business case there. And then, the goal of Syntax really is to be able to take that, extract that information, take that information, and then use it as part of your normal workflows. And so really thinking about how you can help to construct what we have from a workflow perspective inside of Microsoft 365. So if you're familiar with Power Automate and all of the goodness in there, allows you to trigger different actions based on the metadata that you've extracted with Sharepoint Syntax, then it's a great way to be able to kickstart those approval processes, look at how you want to display that information, who needs to have approval of that information, etc. So really thinking about that use case and thinking through where you'll use these powers as well. Now, the other great stuff that we have inside of Microsoft 365, you may have seen some of the new modernization of the managed metadata services that we have as well. And so this is a great opportunity to think through what you might use your taxonomy service for. If you haven't invested in taxonomy and information architecture, this might be a good opportunity to do that as well. And I'm going to pass it over to Sean, who I'm sure has lots to tell you about things like records and taxonomy and other pieces too.
Hi, everyone. Thanks, Naomi. Hello, everyone. For those who don't know me, I'm Sean Squires. I'm a program manager on Project Cortex, working on the Syntax product and also on the taxonomy piece as well, which, as Naomi mentioned, is, when you're thinking about what things do you need to be aware of and special setups, one of the things that we were very conscientious of as we were building Syntax was we wanted you to be able to take advantage of not only existing capabilities in SharePoint, which is already a first-class content management platform, but also how to take advantage of your investments. So things that you've been doing in enterprise content types in taxonomy. As Naomi mentioned, when you're building these document understanding models in content centers, you can actually use your existing taxonomy to make an extractor if you want to extract specific information via the model and actually match it to values that you have defined in your term set. So you can drive consistent tagging of that content that the model is processing. Other things you can do is models, as you will learn, are actually built on top of content types. So at the very least, when you build either a form processing model or even a document understanding model, you're effectively defining a content type. And then when you're training the model to understand and extract specific entities from those documents, that's the schema of the content type. Those are the columns. That's what in those. So when you apply that content type or that model to a library, you're effectively going to attach that content type to the library. We're going to create the view for you and do all the setup for you. We're going to create the columns for you. And then when that model is running at runtime, we're going to run those models, extract that information, and write it out to the appropriate columns to then do, as Naomi said, drive additional downstream business processes, ensure compliance, and all those things. So again, it's really important to emphasize that we really saw this as an opportunity to evolve a lot of the content management capabilities and build on top of that and allow you to leverage your existing investments.
Terrific. So there's a couple of questions that have come in here. Pramod is asking about where we will find it to purchase, also about costs, and then longtime friend of SharePoint and Cortex, Deb Walther. Hi, Deb. Nice to have you online with us. Sorry I won't be making myself available for live questions at SharePoint Saturday New England this fall. But how much is the license and who needs to have the license? Only the person creating the content or the people consuming the content? Who'd like to handle that?
Oh, licensing questions.
I can take that one too. So the final details on license pricing we're going to disclose on October 1st, and it's really hard for us to get into it because so many Microsoft customers are in different jurisdictions with different discounts, and so there's usually different pricing levels to each of those. But in formulating the pricing for Syntax, we looked at doing it two ways, and we really feel that the value of Syntax for helping people encode their expertise and get value from their time is something where we want to make sure that it's priced at a point that it's open to most, if not all, of the people in an organization. So you'll see it at a relatively low per seat cost because we want those values. If someone is uploading content, we want everyone to be able to take advantage of that metadata processing, of the automated compliance and all the rest of those goodness instead of artificially flowing them through one person for every 100. So it's really on a user basis and not on a creator or manager basis. You need a license to Cortex to get to Syntax rather. A year's momentum is going to take a couple more weeks for us to get out of. To be able to access a content center, you need to be a licensed user of Syntax. So that should help with kind of the guidelines and planning. So Tom has a question here that's, I think, Naomi, looking a little bit more at futures, but can you talk about what our thoughts are about how Syntax works with Dynamics 365 and how Dynamics 365 data can be exposed into SPO or Syntax?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So yeah, great question, Tom. So thank you so much for that. One of the areas that we are definitely working with is the Power Platform, as evidenced by SharePoint Syntax use of the AI Builder capability from the Power Platform. So one of the areas that we are working with right now is to look at how we can use Dynamics in the right way to bring in the information we need as part of actually Project Cortex more generally. And I think what's really interesting too is to think about what we want to deliver into the Dynamics experience too. So there's areas where you might be, an audience or a particular role inside of your organization. They may live in Dynamics for a lot of the work that they want to do, and we want to bring things like being able to conceptualize the topics within Dynamics as well. But we also want to be able to use the information that's going through the Dynamics pipeline. For example, if you're processing a bunch of proposals through there, you might need the content understanding capabilities of SharePoint Syntax. So we really do want to bring these areas closer together, definitely collaborating a lot with our friends over in the Power Platform. So much more to come in that area.
Absolutely.
So Swati has a multi-part question here. So I'm just going to, I could go 1, 2, 3 in my screen. So the first question here is, could you talk a little bit more about what's happening with topic pages and what's what we can expect. We know that that was released to the preview group. Second, taking a more phased approach, a modular release approach, moving away from the original summer 2020 plans. Are we going to make different modules available at different points throughout the year? And then the third question is about trial licenses available with Dynamics. And so let's take the first one about topic pages and and then the second part, what to expect for releases moving forward. Naomi?
Sure. All right, thanks, Swati, for yes, very long questions, but we'll see what we can do to get through them all as part of this. So thanks for asking all of these. So yeah, there's a few things on the topic pages themselves. So we have learned an amazing amount from our preview customers, and we really have been exploring the idea of the topic cards, topic pages, all the improvements that we can make as part of that. We've been looking at how the information is being processed correctly and making sure that we're actually giving you very high quality topics and doing some other very cool AI stuff as well. You may have seen some of our initial designs in one of the sessions that we had today and is available on replay as well. So where we actually show where the definition of the topic is being automatically generated from documents, acronyms are being automatically extracted, all of that goodness. So it's been great stuff to be really going through with our preview customers. There's been quite a lot of preview customers and lots of feedback as part of that. So it's really been a great part of the journey to learn from those preview customers, see how things are working well inside of their environments, and then being able to take all of that learnings and making the product even stronger as part of it. So when we think about sort of Project Cortex more generally, we may see this cadence. So over the summer, we did release obviously the modernized taxonomy, managed metadata services, some of the content type upgrades. We recently just went to beta in the Graph API for the managed metadata services as well. So that did happen over the summer. Now here we are in Ignite, and we're releasing Sharepoint Syntax for the very first time, which is another part of Project Cortex. And then we've got just a little while longer before we have the rest of Project Cortex be available, at least in the first version of it. And so we really do have this cadence of like trying to have a project that's delivering goodness to you all as soon as we have it ready. And we want to make sure that we really are not overwhelming you with like, here is all the stuff all at once, because it's a lot of stuff all at once. That's what we've realized working with our preview customers. So our goal is not to overwhelm you. Our goal is to help you understand the journey that we've been on, improve the fundamentals of what we have inside of the product in Microsoft 365. Now you get to grips with content services and the way that you work with SharePoint Syntax. And next we will have a lot more on topic pages, topic cards, and all of the amazing pieces that we have for connecting knowledge and expertise together. So that's one set of questions there. So that's kind of the modular release plan. And then the Cortex trial license available with Dynamics. Not really sure how to answer that one, Chris, sorry. So, but we will have a trial license. It's available as part of Microsoft 365. You'll be able to add on SharePoint Syntax on top of the Microsoft 365 plans. So.
Right. There's a question I also saw. We're getting a lot of questions, folks, so please bear with us. Relating to that, about CDS, Common Data Service, which briefly had another name, which we won't use on this call. Syntax includes a limited capacity to be able to use CDS, because CDS is one of the foundational services that's included with part of Syntax. So all of the different engines that NCAM, Sean, Naomi, and team have kind of pulled together into Syntax are included. You don't need to separately license AI Builder, CDS, Azure Cog Services, and the rest. Those are all, there's an entitlement that comes with Syntax that's pre-integrated and pre-included in that. So if you have CDS already, that's lovely, but you don't need to pre-purchase it before you move into getting Syntax. Where's the question I just saw that really, NCAM, has your name on it?
Yeah, there was one on administrative roles that I saw,
yes.
And I also want to get to Deb's question on invoices and receipts and all that goodness.
Yeah, give me 1 second here. I just lost.
Y'all are faster at reading than I am. It's kind of flying by.
And Yolanda was asking, what sort of skills, knowledge, or expertise are required to be able to set up and maintain syntax? Is this usually IT, an information professional, a business user, and do you need to have your taxonomy built out before you start with syntax?
So I believe you don't need to. That's a really great question. So in terms of, we think about different roles that come into play to set up syntax successfully for your organization. So first of all, you have your SharePoint admins and your Power Platform admins, and these folks really work together to think about, like, how do we want this configured in your organization? So the SharePoint admin or your global admin is someone who can actually do the actual setup. The Power Platform admin comes into play thinking about the AI Builder credits based on the business scenarios that you would need syntax for in your organization. You would also want to work with someone on the business side. So, we think about syntax as solving real problems you have in your organization. So how many content centers do you need? How do you want those established in your organization and structured? And that's where someone on the business side really comes in. So we kind of think about, like, the IT and the business side working together. The SharePoint admin, the Power Platform admin, and global admins helping with the setup, but also, someone on the business side, the knowledge, some sort of like knowledge manager thinking about, well, how many content centers do we need and who has permissions to these and what sort of like problems would they be solving with those sort of content centers, or even where form processing is available. Your taxonomies, you can definitely just define them alongside. It's not like a showstopper before you can really start getting the goodness of syntax in your organization.
Yeah, and if I may just click down on just an aspect that Nick and Kim touched on with the model construction as well. You can imagine one of the powerful aspects of the document understanding models that are created in the content centers is that really we're leveraging new machine teaching techniques of machine learning to allow you to build these models with a very small set of unlabeled files. And we're really trying to lower that barrier to being able to build these AI apps to do the classification and content extraction. How about this? We want to democratize the ability to create those those AI models. And so you can imagine, sure, that might be for some organizations more of a centralized function where we want to really make sure that there are the right models being built for our business documents and being distributed to the right places in our tenant where those files need to be classified. But you can also imagine subject matter experts in the sites themselves in your tenant where you can push those models to and or even eventually build those models so that you can make sure, hey, I know my content. Let me build this model so that I can and make sure it's applied in the right places where that business content is, so that I can ensure that it gets processed correctly. And the same goes with even, taxonomy. I think back to that earlier question, and Kim's right. You don't need the taxonomy to get started here, but the taxonomy, if you've made those investments, or if you have business needs to ensure that consistent tagging of stuff where you want to leverage, great, build that term set first, build those site columns. Now you can reference those site columns when you're building those extractors, and you can even do that consistently across multiple models. So you start to build into the ecosystem really this consistency that draws upon the skills of various roles within your organization.
So, Sean, I'm going to stop you there. I'm also starting to watch time. We have about 7 minutes left. And so we have a question here from Lizzie, Lizzie Winter is really coming from not how do you start with taxonomy, but how do you extend what you already have. So she'd like to hear more about auto tagging. Assume that you already have a formal taxonomy that's in the term store, with 3 levels of hierarchy for practice area, industry sector. Those terms aren't always in the document and users aren't great about tagging them. Could we train syntax to auto tag documents accurately? And I think what's implied is, and how does that work?
So I'm going to break your question apart in 2 ways. The short answer is not yet. A lot of the content models that you build currently in syntax require you to know what you want to extract, and you can effectively, once those models are built, when content gets processed by those models, you can extract those values, and if you have taxonomy, do matches against those predefined term sets and ensure that those files get tagged appropriately. The other thing we can do is with those models is if you don't have taxonomy involved, is we can ensure that content is being auto tagged, if you will, based on those models. So if you want to say that I want to classify documents as contracts, and then once it's identified as a contract, I'm going to extract certain information like what type of contract it is, who the auditor is, who is the person responsible for managing the contract. You can train the model to understand how to find that information in the documents and extract it out. Now, one of the things that we'll be providing in the future is these are sort of custom models that you need to train against your content, but you can imagine being able to use models where far less training is required, where you can just say, hey, I need your help extracting some tags that help me understand what this document is or what it's about. And I think that even goes back to Deb's earlier question around, hey, invoices, receipts, they're kind of similar. Can you guys give us templates or, ways to sort of understand what those things are? Absolutely. There's work being done where we can help you understand this is a receipt. Then if you need to extract specific information from it that's pertinent or specific to your business, then you can build some additional customization on top of that.
Yeah. So I kind of want to pivot from that to a related question that's looking a little more broadly at topics and knowledge. So I'm a knowledge manager. Well, Melissa is a knowledge manager in an org that produces millions of thought research docs a year. She has a complicated taxonomy, lots of metadata. She's trying to figure out how does syntax work with this and what are some of the other tools we have. Since users create docs, they don't tag them. They want to be able to go back and find them, especially since top documents may relate to multiple topics. And I see, Naomi, you've already been typing on this one, but if you'd like to kind of share with our audience what your thoughts are there, would be great. Sure,
I was typing because I wasn't sure we were going to get to it in 7 minutes. Sounds so good. So thanks for a great question, Melissa. And actually sounds like an awesome use case for Project Cortex more generally.
It does, yeah.
So yeah, so the good thing is, and I'll let Sean and Kim weigh in as well. So just on sort of at the highest level of what you could expect from a value piece from Project Cortex. So all of that great investment that you have in taxonomy, that is awesome, yay, because it means we can use it to help seed effectively into what we're doing with knowledge. So the wonderful thing here in terms of Cortex is that we want to use any existing information architecture that you might have inside of your organization. And so if you're a company, it sounds like you have a great use case where you've invested heavily in there, then that's a great way to be able to seed what we're doing with the knowledge discovery part of it. And so that knowledge discovery is effectively, it allows you to basically find topics inside of your organization based on all that corpus of information that we have. And so it's discovering topics based on the knowledge that's in the company. So all those documents, whether you have tagged them manually or not, but if you've used some kind of taxonomy, that's a great way to start. But you can also think about how you seed that into the knowledge piece of it too. So in terms of if you've got a taxonomy, maybe you've got the term store, maybe you've got specific term groups that you think, oh, these should definitely be topics. We know that we need to create those. Hey, that would be great. Seed that in there. And then guess what? Cortex AI can go off and help to basically index content that's in those areas. And that will help you to get that first cut on creating those topic cards and topic pages as part of that. Then it'll continue to auto discover, right? It'll figure out topics that are in there, and documents can be in multiple topics. So it's not an issue of like, oh, okay, people didn't tag it, but we do want to be able to make sure that we're able to use it as evidence essentially that multiple topics exist. And then folks who can curate the information, they can come in, your subject matter experts. Sounds like you must have a whole ton of them because they're pumping out lots of content. Well, wouldn't it be great if we can help them connect there in terms of who is the best resource, who's the best expert to be able to, ask about specific topics, and AI can help you to discover that information there too. So I think it's an awesome use case there too. And then on the syntax side of things, I don't, Sean, if you wanted to talk through a little bit there in terms of maybe extracting some of that information from these thought pieces.
I'm watching the clock. I'm just going
to
cut us off here because we're within 2 minutes. If I could ask our producer just to jump back to this. I really want to point to the first 2 resources here on the screen. So lots of great questions. We have some more Ask the Expert sessions happening throughout Ignite, but also if you go to either resource center, you can sign up to join our newsletter. One of the things that you'll get later on this week is a recap of our announcements, as well as an invite to our monthly office hours series. And so our next open call for the public, which is basically going to be open Q&A on all of our Ignite announcements, will be next Wednesday morning on September 30th. So if we can't get to your question here, we'll try to pick it up at some place like that. So let's see if we can go through these as quickly as possible. So, Nkem, is there a Microsoft learning path or documentation to help learn Cortex?
Yes, there will be. We'll publish those resources. I don't have a link handy here, but I think if you follow the second link there, we'll definitely have a link to all the resources on that.
Okay, Sean, does Syntax have OCR capabilities to handle scanned documents?
It does, yes. When you're building your form processing models, you actually can use scanned files. I don't know if you guys recall, but I actually did that as a demo when we first announced Project Cortex last year, where I'd actually trained a very early model on a library to understand these form invoices, scanned them in through as a physical document from a scanner, and yes, we extracted the text from it and populated the fields.
So my apologies. I'm looking at our clock. I believe our time is up. Just get a confirmation here from the production team. Let's see. Yes, we are at time. So around the world, from those of us here at Microsoft, thank you so much for joining us at Microsoft Ignite. We look forward to seeing you throughout the rest of the week and online through our resources, where we can't wait to hear about all of your success with Cortex and now with Sharepoint Syntax. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.